fun question here with a lot to unpack. The question is, do you ever feel like you've reached a point where you're satisfied with your grip and vision? Or do you stay at that simmering level of frustration? I feel like I'm never satisfied shooting doubles, but my fundamentals during performance in matches seems to be close to acceptable. I'm not a great shooter by any means, but at this point, I'm usually held back by stage planning or execution. Edit, but as you pointed out in the video, it's easy to lose the hard target focus. Definitely still do that. Let's see. Maybe I think about grip too much during doubles, question mark. I tend to perform better in doubles on demand versus when I try to play with my grip before firing the first string. Thanks for all the content and helping us get better. Well, that part's my pleasure. I'm happy to help out. It's just for what it's worth. So let's talk about, I'm going to break this question down to a bunch of different parts. But do I feel I've ever reached a point to where I'm satisfied with grip and vision? Absolutely not. Because, well, I may talk about this in classes. I'm not much of a motivational speaker, but this is a journey without a destination. So regardless of how good I get or how much better than somebody else I seem to be or could be or win by, lose by, it doesn't matter. Regardless of how good I am, I always want to be better. That's what keeps shooting fun for me though and makes me stay engaged because, well, ah, judging from what YouTube analytics says, most middle-aged guys are what's watching this. So let's say you are playing a video game. I'll throw out a few. Maybe I'll luck out and hit one you like. So recent favorite, well, it's been a few years ago, the Zelda for Nintendo Switch. So Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild. Maybe it's one of the Grand Theft Auto games. It could be Skyrim. What else? I mean, any of those types, any type of game. But you get to a point where you've got everything unlocked. You have all the stuff, right? You are OP. Overpowered to the point you can go to anywhere on the map, crush any villain, bad guy, monster, whatever. At that point, do you keep playing the game? You have the game beat into domination. Oh, I like the Borderlands games back in the day too. Borderlands 2 was my jam. So you're playing Borderlands 2 and you get to the point where you have all the guns. You have all, like the gold weapons, or playing Call of Duty, you get all the gold skins or camos to the guns. Everything's maxed out. You have everything. You get to a point where it's like, what do you do next? You have everything unlocked. You've beat the game into submission. There's nothing left to do. So then you move on to the next game, or at least that's what I do. I'm not going to keep playing the game where the guys can't even fight back at this point because I've got all the super overpowered stuff. I've seen everything there is to see. Have a great time playing the game, but then it's time to do something else. So taking that analogy to shooting, if I got so OP at shooting that there was no way for me to get better, or I didn't know how to get better, or I have, sleight of hand already unlocked, but maybe I want to get sleight of hand pro, then it's like that's what keeps me engaged in training and wanting to get better. Because regardless of how good I am, I could always be better. I look at somebody else, I'm like, dang, I wish I could do what that guy's doing. I'm going to have to work at that. So to answer the question, no, I'm never satisfied really with any part of my shooting. And I mean, you could take that to a healthy or unhealthy point, I assume, or I suppose, but I just like working to the premise that I could always be better. So regardless how good I'm doing, and maybe I'm happy with it, or there have been times where I'd win something or accomplish something, I'd, be really happy for a few days. This is awesome. I won this or achieved this or got this score. That's awesome. But then within a day or so, it's like, all right, back to training. So now what's the next thing I want to do? So that's just kind of how I tick. But I want to keep working on the next task. And I like that I don't just have shooting all figured out to the point that it's easy mode. I know everything and I can't miss, can't lose. Everything's the fastest it's ever been. If you did, I'd lose interest in it a little bit. So just like that video game that I've got everything unlocked, seen everything, got every collectible or whatever. It's like, well, time to do something else now. So the question, or the next part of that is, do you stay at that simmering level of frustration? So yes, like what I was just talking about. My simmering level of frustration is going to get higher and higher as I get better and better. So a newer newer shooter maybe is frustrated with something a lot bigger ticket. Maybe I'm frustrated with something smaller, more nuanced, whatever. But I think the important part is, regardless of what skill level you're at, to just be at that simmering level of frustration. To articulate it a little bit differently, it'd be something that I'm kind of on the edge of being able to do, but it's not It's not unobtainable. Like, so let's say a new shooter, they just started shooting. It's their first day wearing having a pistol on, and I want you to draw to hit an A zone at 10 yards in 8/10 of a second. For a new shooter, that'd be totally retarded. There's just no point in doing that. Like, it's either going to be unsafe or they're not going to be able to do it. So you start working on, okay, for dry repetitions, just draw a sight picture. I want you to do this in a second and a half. Can you get to that? How close is that? Is that realistic? Can you do that maybe this week? So you have to just keep setting kind of baby steps, or setting your goal at something just where it's obtainable, but maybe it's a little bit of a stretch. You're a little bit uncomfortable to get there, but it's doable. And that's up for you to decide what that is. But you want to keep just chipping away at it and trying to, every day I want to be just a little bit better than I was yesterday. The good part of that, when you fast forward a year of doing that, you'll find out you've gained a huge ground by just chipping away a little chunk at a time. As opposed to going, let's say I go to the range today and I take 10,000 rounds of ammo with me. I'm not going to leave the range until I'm whatever percent better, or I could do whatever thing. And if it's a big leap from where my skill level is now, I could shoot 10,000 rounds and end up with just hot guns or guns that need to be cleaned in sore hands and not meet the goal, because there's only so much you can accomplish in a day. So anyway, that's important to understand, and that simmering level of frustration stays regardless of what skill level you are. You're always trying to do just a little bit better than what you can do now. The next part, I feel like I'm never satisfied with shooting doubles. I agree with you. But my fundamentals during performance in a match seem to be close to acceptable. I'm not a great shooter by any means. Hey man, who is? But at this point, I'm usually held back by stage planning and execution. He's pointed out, yeah, sometimes he maybe stares at the sight, doesn't say target focus. Still does that. Maybe thinks about grip too much during doubles. So I'll kind of pause there. So I agree. The point of doing doubles is kind of to never to be satisfied, because what you're looking for, people should be familiar, but it's rapid fire pairs. So draw the gun, gripping the gun in a way you deem to be acceptable. It's fast pair, pop, pause, fast pair, pop, pause, fast pair, pop. And at different distances, you're just seeing kind of what you can get away with and working on your grip. So for a newer shooter, 5, 7, maybe 10 yards is about max. Once you get a little bit seasoned, I like pushing doubles back to 25 yards with a handgun to really tie cause and effect. Because if you're shooting, I don't know how well I can do this on camera, but so I have some dry fire targets here. If I'm shooting a fairly tight group, but they're kind of just trending a little bit away from the target, they're just a little bit down here. Well, up close, that could still be an A zone at 10 yards. At 25 yards, it might be off the target. So it's good to try that at different distances. You're looking for a concentric group and as perfect as you can make the group. At 5 or 7 yards, I'd love to shoot 3 or 4 iterations of doubles and have a group you could cover with a 50-cent piece or something. But then if I could do that, dang it, I wish I could cover it with a dime. I mean, that's something that would really happen. So regardless of how good it is, you always want to do better. And that's the whole point of the drill. Because if you did the drill, you're like, yep, did pretty good, check, got it. Then like, okay, what's next? So it's important that you keep working on all the aspects of whatever drill it is. You just you're chasing perfection. And that might not be something you could obtain, but you're making an effort towards getting to perfection. Let's see. So tend to perform better in doubles on demand, but try to play with his grip before firing the last string. So that makes sense. If you're, I don't know about first or last, or before firing the first string, but the point of doing doubles is just to perfect your grip. So if you draw and you don't have the right hand placement, position, or pressures, yeah, make the correction before you fire the first pair, and then hopefully you keep that same pressure. But if you notice something's happening or not happening, then you just make changes and you're working at building a habit where you just draw the pistol from the holster. It's correct. You shoot. You have to do mag change or whatever back in the holster. Draw again. It's perfect. It's exactly how you want it to be. You're working to just change your habits So when you draw the gun, you don't have to make any adjustments with your hands. But as you get better, you're likely to nitpick yourself and see little things that you wish you could change. And that's just part of the game because you keep attacking these little things that you want to change. And then they end up being a really big picture change of you over a year's time of you just making these little subtle kind of corrections and changes to your habits. So anyway, hopefully that answers the question. But like I said, being perpetually dissatisfied is what I do. That's the way I tick. As long as it's done healthy, I don't think that's a bad thing because you're always just looking to do better. Well, one quick story. I was recently training with a guy, lots of access to ammo, unlimited access to ammo, and very talented. Just watch the guy, and it's just, I was very, very impressed. Like, yeah, I could outshoot him some. He was with me on some stuff. Very talented shooter. It's like, dude, this is pretty good. Like, I'm impressed. He's like, it could be better. I appreciate it. Not really. And he's just like, I could tell real quickly that's the way some people work. Because if I do a drill in 6 seconds and he did it in 2 seconds, and that's the analogy I made with him. I told him, I said, hey, this is a 6-second drill. If you do it in 2, you're going to be really irritated and not happy that it wasn't 1.99, right? And he's like, he smiles like, yeah, that's correct. Yep, that's okay. So anyway, people operate that way. I'm not saying it's a bad thing at all because if you kind of work in a healthy level of being perpetually dissatisfied, always nitpicking at your shooting, always wanting to be just a little bit better, in the long term, that ends up being a really good thing because you just gradually and subtly change habits you have into hopefully better habits. You pick up on little nuances that you stop doing or you do differently. And over months or years, you end up with being really refined in changes in ways that you necessarily wouldn't see from day to day to day. But over months and months, it equates to a huge and meaningful change to your habits in shooting. So anyway, that's what I got for you today. But being perpetually dissatisfied is not always a bad thing. In some ways, it's probably a good thing as long as it's done in moderation. So hopefully this video is helpful. If you have any questions, like, share, comment, drop your thoughts below, all that kind of junk. Either way, I appreciate you watching.